Dudley Castle, one of the most famous ghosts is the Grey Lady, believed to be a woman named Dorothy Beaumont. She was the wife of the deputy commander of the Royalist forces at the castle during the siege by Parliamentarian soldiers in 1645. Dorothy gave birth to a daughter, Frances, in 1645, but the child only survived a few months and was buried at St Edmund's, known locally as Bottom Church. Dorothy never recovered from this loss and passed away herself during the siege. Her body could not be buried with that of the daughter, as the church was destroyed prior to the siege to stop it from being used as a vantage point by the parliamentarians. Dorothy's body was allowed to be taken through the parliamentarian lines to be buried at St Thomas's Church, known locally as the Top Church, but her husband was not allowed to accompany the funeral procession. Since then, the ghost of Dorothy Beaumont has been seen many times floating down the steps of the keep or passing through the buildings of Sharrington Range. Alternatively, during the siege by Cromwell's troops, the Grey Lady, who some believe hung herself, swung to and fro for several hours from one of the battlements of the Royalist stronghold. In fact, in 2014, a photo was taken, allegedly of the Grey Lady, maybe with a child, emerging from the court window of Sharrington Range. Another much reported ghost at Dudley Castle is that of a Civil War drummer boy. He was killed by a single bullet. He's heard many times at night, banging away on his drum, in various drum rolls as if in battle. It's deemed as bad luck to hear or see him, due to the unfortunate nature in which he died. The most haunted location in the castle is thought to be Chapel Undercroft. In an ancient building there's a stone coffin that's believed to have once held the body of one of the castle's most feared lords, John Somery. On many occasions people reported seeing legs behind the coffin, believed to be that of John himself. Other reports include people feeling their clothes being tugged at and their bodies prodded. On one particular occasion, the little girl flipped over a chair during a paranormal investigation. Many people have been acknowledged by an elderly couple who walk through the grounds of the castle and zoo, not just by night but in the daylight hours too. Their clothing suggests being another time. He may lift his hat, she may nod in your direction, but they both disappear just as quickly before your very eyes. There is a monk dressed in black, referred to as Black Monk, seen in and around the vicinity. The same vision in the nearby ruins of St James's Priory, close to the Priory estate, and originally belonged to a Benedictine order linked to much Wenlock, and did indeed wear jet black habits. Visitors to the Queen Mary's Ballroom have heard the thumping sound of Wigan's chosen few, footsie, when no DJ or band are present. Frankly, I find this hard to believe. However, more believable are the reports of a youthful ghost called Big Phil, offering visitors ice creams. The Station Hotel is an Art Deco building opposite Dudley Castle and has become a magnet over the years for people with interest in the paranormal. One of the biggest draws for those interested is in the supernatural is the infamous room 217. When a manager slept over in 217, he'd hung a football shirt on a hanger over the wardrobe, but his sleep was disturbed at 3 a.m. by a whispering sound in both ears. He turned over and saw a woman standing in the corner of the room, leaning over the dressing table. The woman was wearing a black dress down to the floor, with tight-fitting sleeves to her wrist. She had dark hair scraped back and it was tied into a bun. As she was seen, the whispering stopped, and then the light was turned on and the woman disappears. However, when he awoke in the morning, the football shirt was neatly folded, lying on the foot of the bed. Yes, the lady was a baggy and annoyed at the disrespect for the shirt. A blonde barmaid was changing a barrel in the cellar in 2005 when she heard a man's voice whispering. She saw no one but heard footsteps down the corridor outside the room. Another time she went to get an extra beer glasses from the cellar. Whilst carrying a plastic tray full of them, she saw the silhouette of a man about 7 feet tall. He stepped out in front of her and blocked her path. She described him as being solid. She said, "George, do you mind? I've got a job here. I've got to get these glasses upstairs." He stepped back, and as she walked past, she said it was like walking past an open freezer. George may have been George Williams, a one-time manager of the hotel, who'd allegedly murdered Elizabeth Hitchins, a servant girl he lured into the cellar. Legend has it that as Elizabeth spurned his advances and threatened to tell his wife, prompting Williams, or was it Williamson, as he is known, to strangle and stab her before hiding her body in a barrel. Alternatively, it could be the spirit of George Lawley, a writer who knew of Elizabeth's murder and wrote it in a ledger which he hid. To this day, the ledger has not been found. It appears that the character of his name was a local historian who at the time worked for the brewery as a writer. The jolly Collier Dudley, the Westbrook family, had lived in the former inn for 2 years before their ghostly outbreak. A young blonde woman, wrapped in white and wearing lipstick, was seen in various parts of the house, as was a phantom bald man. Beds were moved, knocking started, and footsteps were heard in empty parts of the building. Eventually, as strangely as it had started, the hauntings ceased. Spare Room Cafe was the Crown Hotel on the corner of Wolverhampton Street and Priory Street in Dudley. An icy cold chill and mysterious bangs and crashes from empty rooms are all blamed for what an unknown entity which had found home in the cafe. A fish and chip shop based in the building also reported strange events and a string of bad luck. Dudley Hippodrome is a historic and landmark building located on Castle Hill in Dudley. The Art Deco styled venue opened in 1938. It last operated as a theatre in 1964 and closed altogether in 2009, having been used as a bingo hall. When the doors finally closed, they may have shut on alleged hauntings that are said to still happen inside the place. The main ghost that allegedly haunts the site was affectionately nicknamed George by staff. He's supposed to cause a lot of poltergeist activity around the historic building. This included knocking noises in the stage area, cold spots, doors opening and closing, electrical equipment being interfered with, and lights being switched on. Taps were sometimes found running in the gentlemen's toilets after being turned off, where they were then turned back on. Upon going to turn taps off once more, a staff member reported a strong push to the shoulder, causing them to fall forwards into the corner of the sink. St Edmund's Church is better known locally as Bottom Church, is associated with local hangman Edmund Croker, who is buried in the churchyard there. Local legend maintains that at the stroke of midnight, the ghost of Edward Croker rises from the grave to be pursued by the shades of those he has executed. One popular of Croker's ghosts concerns a group of young men drinking in the nearby Hawkshead pub. They dared one of their number to spend the hour after midnight sitting on Croker's grave for a bet. In order to prove he had done it, the young man had to leave a dagger plunged into the earth of the grave. The drunken young man was seen to enter the churchyard, but no one else had the nerve to stay around to witness the deed. The next morning the young man was missing. A search revealed his corpse, laid out alongside Croker's grave, with a look of sheer terror on his face. Dudley Canal runs through limestone tunnels beneath Castle Hill. It's here that the ghosts of two children have been seen, near to the entrance to the Wren's Nest tunnel. The story is that the youngsters tried to go through the tunnel on a homemade raft and perished in the attempt. They are briefly seen standing just above the waterline, as if awaiting rescue by the tourist boats as they pass by there. A man in old-fashioned working clothing has also been seen in the deeper parts of the limestone caverns. Visitors often comment on how authentic he looks, until told afterwards that no present-day employees were working there at the time of the sighting. Sedgley, the Beacon Hotel's former landlady, Sarah, may still keep an eye on her former pub. One witness observed a female form walking through the roll, while sounds of movement can be detected emerging from empty rooms. A man in old-fashioned clothing has been observed on the site, although there's nothing unusual about that in Sedgley, I have to say. The White Lion, Sedgley, appeared in the local press in 2023 when placed on the market, with one of the unique selling points being two ghosts, a royalist soldier and a former landlady. Alas, there was no mention that this is where I used to catch the coach to Wigan Casino from. Sedgley Turls Hill folklore places a veiled lady and her two adult sons in this area. The woman's children are said to have taken their own lives in separate incidents. Early one morning, a member of staff walking past the chemist shop at the Black Country Museum noticed three old ladies in authentic Victorian dresses chatting inside. Assuming they were costumed staff, she looked away, but on looking back, the ladies had vanished. An entry between the chemist shop and the chapel. It is here that a tall, slim lady in period dress has been seen again by museum staff. As soon as they look away and glance back, the lady is gone. The Toll House, dating back to 1845, is another building where strange occurrences are reported. Very often, visitors will ask if one particular room is haunted. It's always the bedroom on the right. On one occasion, a lady asked if she could look in the bedroom as the door was closed. She opened the door and quietly closed it. And when asked why she had not gone in, the lady said she did not want to disturb the girl sleeping on the bed. The room was empty. The Bottle and Glass public house was moved from its original location in Brookmoor to the Black Country Living Museum, where it was backed onto the canal as it does now. When the pub had been shut up, a man described as having a very round face and wearing circular glasses had been seen peering out of one of the windows. The sound of someone moving around in the back room is regularly heard by the pub staff. Even they know the room is empty. Staff also sometimes have the experience of someone tapping on their shoulder. Of course, when they turn around, there's no one there. Female staff in costumes sometimes have their long dresses pulled, as if by a child. This may be the same child who has been seen in and around the pub, and the child is said to be 10-year-old Isaac Male, or that could be Malay, I guess. When the canals were busy with horse-drawn working barges, Isaac worked for boatman James Haynes. One very foggy night, Haynes, with two of his men, were leading the horse back to its stable. In the dense fog, the horse lost its footing and fell into the canal, with young Isaac clinging desperately to its back. The only thing Haynes and his men cared about was rescuing the valuable horse. It took some 20 minutes before they got the horse out of the canal and finally turned their attention to Isaac. But it was too late. He'd already drowned. The inquest was held in the Bottle and Glass, and a verdict of accidental death was delivered. However, Haynes and his men were severely criticised for allowing poor Isaac to drown that night. It seems that his mischievous spirit has never left, despite the buildings being relocated to the Black Country Living Museum. Nearly 50 years ago, in an area near the Crooked House in Gornel, someone reported coming across old Winding engine house on a colliery site. The engine house was subsequently dismantled and moved to the museum. All of a sudden, they felt confronted by an overwhelming sense of evil, trying to unnerve them enough to lose their balance. Praying and commanding it to get back wherever it came from, they stepped right through it, got down and got out as quickly as they could. Whatever it was, nerves or something nastier, the incident left him shaking for several minutes. In fact, the Crooked House has historically rumoured to be haunted, including by a barmaid near Polly. Of course, the Crooked House has recently been in the news as property speculators demolished the historic building, and much to the condemnation of locals and indeed the national press. At Lower Gornel St James's Church, ghostly voices were heard in the churchyard, and a local vicar was assaulted by an unknown force. An exorcism finally disposed of the entities. Whereas on Straits Road junction of Cotwell End Road, a postal worker was surprised to see a 17 or 18-year-old man wearing an orange t-shirt and jeans out on a cold and frosty morning. The man carried a small bag and his skin was incredibly pale. Not surprised on a frosty morning in t-shirt and jeans. The figure walked past the postal worker, looking right back at her, but did not speak. The worker was amazed that anyone could have such pale skin and turned to take a second look, only to find that he'd disappeared. The Black Horse pub in Cradley, which is no longer standing, in the green room located on the 3rd floor, was said to be haunted by the ghost of a serving girl by the name of Lucy. Haddon Hill House in Cradley Heath is another building which is said to have a ghostly past. Eleanor, or possibly Elaine, of High Seach Mill is said to wander the building, looking for her over, a monk from Halesowen Abbey. Legend has it that they were planning to elope, but met a disturbing end when an underground passage between the house and the abbey was bricked up. Both ghosts have been seen. He is walking around praying. Elaine is crying and wringing her hand. Another spirit dressed in Victorian clothing is said to wander the gardens of Haddon Hill House. Maybe it's the 19th century industrialist who built Haddon Hill House in 1878, George Alfred Haden Best. There have long been stories of a white lady seen on the stairs in the former dining room and walking across the waters of the southern pond in the park. A legend does not tell us who she was, but her water walking activities suggest that she used to pass that way before. It was created and it refuses to be diverted. She may be more closely associated with the original Haddon Hall, which Haden Best retained as an annex for his aunt, than the Victorian Haddon Hill House. Aldnell Road hit the news headlines in 2008 following a series of reports of motorists crashing their car to avoid a small child in the road. No child has ever been found. However, many do believe that what they had seen may have been a ghost. At the starving Rascal, Amblecote, sometime around 1870s, a tramp came to the door of the pub asking for food and shelter. The landlord at the time refused, and being a harsh winter, the next morning the beggar was found dead on the doorstep. The story goes that the pub has been cursed by the vagrant ever since, with dark shadows hanging over its walls. Wet footprints can appear on the floor even when the weather is dry, and staff and customers alike have both felt and seen a figure described as an old man in various parts of the pub. Customers have had the experience of seeing a hand reach out and grab their pint, only to find nobody there. The pub, which was originally called the Dudley Arms, changed its name in 1977 to reflect the tale, and a new sign was made showing the beggar and his disgruntled ghost. The pub has hot and cold spots as well as shadows on the walls. Bottles are said to come off the shelves, and a shadowy figure down the cellar is a fascinating place. The Talbot Hotel dates back to the 1630s and was formerly home of the rich and influential linemaster Richard Foley. As a coaching inn, the Talbot was a social and business centre in Stourbridge. Today, an extensive network of cellars beneath the building extended under the streets and the adjacent shops. These tunnels are closely connected with paranormal goings-on and have been reported to take on a frightening and oppressive atmosphere. During the 18th century, the landlord of the Talbot Hotel had an affair with a young lady who fell pregnant by him. The baby was stillborn, and he hid the body behind one of the walls in the cellar in order to remove evidence of the affair. Shortly afterwards, the mother died in room 19, and thereafter it was said to be haunted by a lady in white who wanders all over the building, but particularly in the area around room 19. She's been seen by staff and residents alike, sobbing and searching for a lost baby. Nobody knows why the beer glasses stick to the wall at the Somerset pub in Stourbridge. The old Manor House in Stourbridge, hundreds of people flocked to this house after a ghostly 7-foot-tall nurse appeared. Drakelow Tunnels began life as a shadow factory for British Leyland during the Second World War, producing aero engines. During the Cold War, Drakelow Tunnels became a nuclear bomb shelter, designated as Regional Seat of Government 9. The tunnels were originally dug out of sandstone. Explosives were used to blast out more than 3 miles underground, and not without serious accidents. One of the worst on record took place in October of 1941, when the roof collapsed in the tunnel 1 and killed 3 men. In the tunnels themselves, 1940s war music has been heard, and when the source of the music is tracked, it immediately stops. Strange mists have been reported to descend on Tunnel 4, and on one occasion a caretaker's German shepherds were transfixed by a misty figure in the tunnel. The dogs bolted off, terrified, and have not returned. People are said to experience the feeling of being watched, and some claim to have been touched or pushed. A male figure has been spotted on one occasion around a fully lit doorway, and has been given the name Oswald, and is thought to have been one of the workers killed in the construction of the tunnels. The Bunded Warehouse in Stourbridge is a 3-storey canal-side building, which has parts dating back to 1799. It's reported to play host to a variety of strange events. Both staff and visitors at the Bonded Warehouse are said to have experienced objects moving, doors opening and closing by themselves, and mysterious figures appearing. A video is said to have captured a ball bouncing in an upstairs room. Gibbet Lane, Stourbridge, in 1812, gentleman farmer Benjamin Robbins was brutally attacked. The 57-year-old was making his way back home to Dunsley Hall, following a successful day at Stourbridge Market. He had been drinking in the Nag's Head, celebrating when 32-year-old William Howe, a working-class joiner, clocked eyes on him. William was known for liking quality hats and quality clothing, and fancied himself as a bit of a highwayman, but without a horse because he could not afford one. He was looking for someone to rob, and unfortunately Benjamin Robbins was in the wrong place. After leaving, Benjamin was making his way down Fairtree Lane, known as Gibbet Lane, when he noticed a person behind him catching up rapidly. Robbins was just half a mile from Dunsley Hall when William caught him and pulled out a cocked pistol. William then shot Robbins in the back and robbed him, leaving him for dead on the lane. Robbins got just 21 shillings on him, just over 21 shillings on him, and a fine silver pocket watch. But defying the odds, Robbins managed to crawl his way back to Dunsley Hall and was looked after by 2 doctors. He lingered between life and death for 10 days and died on December the 28th, 1812, from his wounds. The gentlemen farmers were scared by this and the fact that somebody could just be killed like this and robbed. The magistrates decided to call in 2 Bow Street runners to investigate the case. There was a reward of £100 from Robin's own family, and also £50 from Kinsler residents, and another £50 from Stourbridge residents put up. The landlord of the Nag's Head, a famous coaching inn, recalled a rather suspicious stranger who'd spent most of the day in the pub, drinking in the tap room, and seemed particularly interested in Robbins. He described the man as short and thick-set, about 30 years of age, and wearing an elegant fawn-skin racecoat, riding boots and a tricorn house. This fawn-skin waistcoat was to prove Howe's undoing. It was stated that a man wearing such a garment was seen to hire a gig to take him to Ombersley. The runners tracked down William Howe and arrested him. He was taken to Stafford Jail, but did not admit anything, though in the end there were 2 pieces of evidence that condemned him. Firstly, he pawned a silver pocket watch in Worcester, and the pawnbroker remembered his face. Secondly, he got a pair of pistols, which were later discovered. Whilst he was in jail, he got a fellow prisoner to pass a letter to his wife to tell her where the second pistol was hidden. It was hidden in a haystack in Old Swinford. The letter said to get rid of it, though Howe had not been married very long and did not realise his wife could not read. She had to give the letter to somebody else to read it, and the game was up once this person read the letter and realised the content of it. The trial did not last very long, just a few hours in fact. He was sentenced to hang, and he was said to have confessed to the murder of Benjamin Robbins on the scaffold. Having hung him, they also gibbeted him. His body was put in a very strong iron cage, and the cage was hung on a tree very high up on the lane, where the actual attack took place. It's believed that his bones were taken down and buried underneath the tree. When he was buried under the tree, they put a dagger through where his heart would have been. The idea is that the dagger is supposed to keep the spirit of a dead person in the ground. It didn't work because the spirit of William Howe very quickly made himself known. Even whilst he gibbeted, there's a story that 2 schoolchildren in 1213 came along to look at one, and one of them shouted up to ask William how he was. He got an eerie response back of cold and clammy. People claim to have heard metal rattling in the area he was gibbeted. People claim to have experienced a dark figure following them down the lane. Even today there are stories from Gibbet Lane, although the latest report of the sighting of William Howe's ghost was in 1940, when a local woman walking along Gibbet Lane on a clear moonlight night became aware of a man following her. She insisted that the phantom's neck stretched and swayed from side to side as if broken. The figure disappeared on reaching a spot where William's House corpse had hung in chains for more than a century. In Hagley, the Badger's Sett's pub, previously called the Gypsy's Tent, nicknamed Bella, a phantom woman said to haunt the cellar, and is said to be connected to the body of a female who was found in witch hazel nearby. A woman discovered inside the hollow trunk of witch ale was thought to have been murdered in an unknown ritual. Shortly after the crime, graffiti sprang up asking who put Bella in witch elm. The crime remained unsolved to this day, and animals are reported to be weary of the area. A ghostly male in uniform has also been spotted on the road outside the Badger's Sett pub. Halesowen, between the town and the Lickey Hills, when wild boars lived wild, the devil would periodically come out hunting with his hellhounds. They patrolled this area, inducing nightmares in any witness careless enough to watch them. Whereas on the High Street, Halesowen, where a Anglo-Saxon church once stood, is home to a large black dog which glides around. Its howls are prevalent throughout August. The little chop house Halesowen is reputedly haunted by the ghost of a little girl who died of scarlet fever in the early 1900s. She seems to be something of a playful entity who likes to hide things and have them reappear in unlikely places. Her footsteps can sometimes be heard in the pub, and she is particularly active when a new licensee takes over. Old Odnell Road, section of a B road which runs between Halesowen and Stourbridge, is considered an accident black spot, despite the fact that it's basically straight and has no strange chambers to speak of. The other big difference between this and other black spots, though, is that many drivers report that their accidents came about as a result of swerving to avoid ghostly apparitions of young children in Victorian dress.